Hi everyone, it's Alice, and today I have a quick little bonus video for you because I recently went to the bookstore and I did some damage, so I have a little classics haul to show you. I've been lusting over these particular editions for a good while now because I think they're gorgeous, and I finally just couldn't resist anymore. So I got this whole stack, and they are beautiful. It really is a miracle that I didn't get more of these, but getting this whole stack is still pretty indulgent because I've already read most of these. I just wanted these editions too. I used to collect a lot of different classic editions like back in the day. If you've been on this channel for a really long time, you might remember some of the hauls that I did. And I still have a lot of those books, but it's been a while since I've splurged on anything like this. But I just couldn't help myself. And also I am an adult and I make my own money and I can do whatever I want. Nobody asked me where I'm gonna put these because I don't know, but I feel like I'll make room somewhere. Where there's a will, there's a way. Like, I'll find some space for them. I'm excited to show them to you, and I'll try to put in some close-ups as well so you can really see them because they are beautiful. I think these editions are called the Vintage Collector's Editions, and they've made around 40 of these, and I don't know if they're making any more, but I kind of, on one hand, I hope so because they're beautiful, but on the other hand, it would be better for my wallet if they didn't. They're all naked hardcovers. They feel really well made and sturdy, so they do feel like books that you can actually read. And they all have these beautiful covers, and they have foil detailing, but it's kind of like subtle, which I like. And all of them have sprayed edges, which I don't always like, but I do like it for these ones because it matches the marbled end papers, which I think is like a cool touch. And they're just gorgeous. I do also like the text size and the font, actually, which is pretty important when you're actually reading these. Anyways, I'm gonna go through the ones that I got and show them to you and also tell you what they're about, even though you probably already know because they're classics, but I'm just gonna tell you anyway. Starting with Jane Eyre by Charlotte Brontë. I have actually wanted another edition of this for a while because the one that I already have is basically white, and to be honest, I'm scared to damage it. It's a paperback and it's beautiful, but it's like very easy to scuff, and you probably should not be afraid to like quote unquote damage your books, but they actually don't make those editions anymore because the publisher went out of business. And so I'm a little scared of it. So I think when I reread this book, this is the one that I will be rereading. Anyways, this is one of my favorite books of all time, and it's my favorite Brontë. It tells the story of Jane, who has quite a lonely and sad and difficult childhood, but it really helps her build an independent spirit. And that spirit really comes in handy when she gets a little bit older and she gets a job as a governess in the house of Mr. Rochester, who is really just like a dark cloud, to be honest. And the story is about her working there and getting to know Mr. Rochester, but it's also about this secret being kept at Thornfield Hall. And I'm sure we all know what that secret is. I really want to reread this because I've only read it once, and I remember when I did read it, I found it surprisingly readable, and I just loved the story of Jane. I loved the writing, and the atmosphere in this book is just impeccable. So I really just need to do it. I do really like that this cover isn't too dark though. I feel like it fits the vibe of the story really well. The second one I have is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and I just couldn't resist this one because the cover is so trippy. I have this book in paperback in another edition that I really like as well, but I just had to get this one because this cover feels like you've taken acid. Like, I feel like this is what you would see. And reading the story is also sort of like taking acid because it's absolutely crazy. The story in here is about Alice, who one day follows a rabbit in a waistcoat down a rabbit hole, and she discovers this whole world filled with strange things and creatures. And there's no way to really summarize this book because it really is absolutely crazy. But it's also very creative and a lot of fun to read. This edition also features the original drawings, which I really appreciate. And this is just like such a fun and weird book to read, and I feel like it's fun both for kids and for adults. The rest of the books are basically just the novels by Jane Austen, and even though I have these in paperback, I've wanted them in hardcover for a while, and I do like the paperback editions that I have, but I don't know, they don't spark joy in the same way anymore. They feel a little bit boring maybe, and these editions are definitely not boring. I actually haven't read all of Austen's novels yet. I've read 4 of them, but of course I do intend to read them all. But then I also kind of want to reread all of the ones that I already read. So I think what I really need to do is just quit my job, turn off my phone, and just read. My favorite Austen as of now, though, is Pride and Prejudice. And I know that this is a very basic choice, but it really is my favorite. I think that this will always have a special place in my heart because this is one of the first classics that I read in English. And I was in my teens and I found it so challenging because English is my second language. And I hadn't really read any classics in English, and I hadn't read a lot of books in English in general. And I struggled through this book. Like, it was so difficult to get through, but I did get through it. And I was so proud of myself for that. I have reread this since, and I definitely understood more of the story on that reread, but I just love the story, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It tells the story of Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, and when they meet, Elizabeth kind of hates Mr. Darcy because he's so prideful in her eyes, but then things get a little bit complicated when his friend forms an attachment to her sister. One of the things that I love about this book, in addition to it being an epic love story and being filled with interesting characters, is that it's actually quite a funny novel. I also just love this edition. I love the colors of it and the design, and this actually reminds me a little bit of like classic Norwegian rose painting. It's beautiful. My second favorite book by Austen is Emma, and I actually read this for the first time only a few years ago, and I really, really liked it. This is the most vibrant cover out of the bunch, and I feel like that makes a lot of sense with how this book is. The story follows Emma, who is young, rich, spoiled, and kind of vain, and she loves sort of organizing the lives of all of the people in her life and like the lives of the people in the little village next to where she lives. And she also loves playing matchmaker. And in the story, her playing matchmaker has some pretty severe consequences. I loved reading about the main character in here. She's a very interesting person and she makes some interesting choices. Even though the story is a little slow, I did really like it. And I also loved seeing the different side characters and the setting of this village and everything. It's a beautiful story. Then we have Persuasion, and I read this book probably like 10 years ago, and I remember not really loving it, which is one of the reasons that I want to reread it, because I think I would love it much more now. This follows a woman who was once engaged to a man that she loved, but she was convinced to break off the engagement because this guy didn't have the right wealth and status. And then years later, she's still unmarried and he comes back into her life, and now he's wealthy and successful, and the story is all about what happens with that. I can't remember exactly why I didn't end up loving this one as much the first time I read it, but I definitely want to reread it, and I also love the colors of this edition. It's beautiful. I keep saying all these books are beautiful, but they really are. I also love the colors of this one, Sense and Sensibility, and I have read this one as well, but it was ages ago, and to be honest, I can't remember anything from this book except that it's about 2 sisters. And I think a lot of what I sort of remember from this book is stuff that I've seen in adaptations of this, so I really need to reread it. The sisters in here are very different from each other. One is very practical and reserved, the other is passionate and wears her heart on her sleeve, and we follow these women through romance and heartbreak and a lot of the things that women in this time had to deal with. The fact that the story is about sisters is one of the reasons I think I would absolutely love this on a reread, because I love books about sisters. I think at the time when I read this and when I read Persuasion, it's like 10 or 11 years ago, I was plowing through classics like nobody's business, and I think that that was fueled by wanting to have read certain things, and I don't think I really slowed down enough to really see what I was reading or take it in or enjoy it, which is why I think I would like them more now, because I feel like I read very differently now. I pay much more attention and I read because I want to read. I don't just read for the sake of reading. Not that I did that all the time back then either, but I do remember wanting to read a lot of classics just to have read them. And now I read classics if I want to read them. And I just think that I would appreciate these books a lot more now. I think the cover for this next one is particularly excellent. It's Northanger Abbey, and I love this like arch in the back and the colors of this. It's very moody, which I love. I've never read this one, but it follows a 17-year-old girl who goes on a trip to Bath. And when she's there, she meets and falls in love with this man who invites her to his family estate, Northanger Abbey. And the main character really loves reading gothic novels, and when she gets to this estate, I think her imagination takes her for a little bit of a ride because of all the books that she's read. And that's all I really know about this, but just that sounds interesting, and this is also not that long, so I really should read it. Lastly, we have Mansfield Park. And again, this has a very moody cover, which I love. This is one of Austen's longest books, which is one of the reasons I think I haven't read it yet. But the older I get, the more I can appreciate a longer novel, so I don't feel as intimidated by this anymore. I think this one in particular sounds really good. It follows this girl who, when she grew up with her parents, she was living in a very poor existence, but then her rich cousins at Mansfield Park decides to take her in and raise her, and she grows up very aware of where she comes from. And I think the story takes off when her cousins make friends with these very glamorous people, and that's all I really know, but just the premise of that sounds really good to me. I think the main character in here and her background, it just sounds interesting, so I'm excited to meet her. And I do think that Jane Austen's heroines in all of her books are interesting people, so I'm always excited to meet them. I just know that these books are going to look so good on my shelves. I just need to find space for them, but I am quite good at rearranging to find space for books, so I think we will be fine. Like I mentioned though, there are 40 books in these editions, and to be honest, I don't actually like all of them, so it's not a goal of mine to collect every single one, but I do think I might like to expand my collection a little bit at some point. I have been looking at The Secret Garden, which is one of my favorite books from childhood, and I think this edition is beautiful. I've also looked at Dracula, which I really like the cover of, and then Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and The Picture of Dorian Gray both have like really nice gothic covers, and I have also seen them in real life and they are very beautiful, so maybe someday I'll get those. And then I have also looked at the edition of Frankenstein because that is one of my favorite books, and I'm sort of collecting Frankenstein editions, and I think maybe this would be a nice addition to my collection. That was it though. Those were all the books that I had to show you. Now I'm gonna go try and put these away somewhere. It will probably trigger a whole like reorganization situation, but that's okay. We will make it work. I hope you enjoyed this little extra video, and as always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!